Microphone check. Hey, hey, test. So. Okay, test 1, 2, 1, 2, hey, so. Test. Is it okay for you? Hey, hey. Test. 1, 2, hey, hey, so. Hey, hey, test. You got the audio? Hello? Fine for you? Because otherwise... Okay. Because otherwise I would get the cable. Hey, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, hey, sa. Si, sa. Test. 1, 2. Okay, all right.
these ones, they're awful because they always go down, you know? Okay. Ah, okay. I get it. Okay, yeah. Makes sense to
You
me.
can sit also on the other side.
Yeah.
It's not a circle, it's a square. People in the room, there is all side empty. Come decide. We're not gonna call you on stage. Probably. The whole room is a stage indeed. That's true. Oh, life is a stage. I like this. So if everybody takes a seat, we can give it a start. Good morning, everybody. Let's see now who was there yesterday and who followed the instruction. How was it yesterday? Yeah or not? It was okay. Did you enjoy the drinks? Yeah, the drinks are always good, huh? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our morning plenary for our Creative Skills Week. And again, like yesterday, we have audience in our beautiful venue here in Vienna at the University of Applied Arts. And we have also audience online. That's why we have to use the mic. Not because we don't hear each other, but for that reason. And as you see, we have changed the setup. We were telling you yesterday that it would be a bit different. So there we are. So today we're going to have the speakers in the middle, and we're going to have a full program of activities for you. And I'm going to just show you that in a second. So this is our program for the day. If you haven't done it already, I strongly encourage you to download the app, and I remind you that you have a QR code behind on the badge to do that. So we're going to have our first plenary now, and then we're going to move to our interactive sessions. I'm not going to tell you a lot about that. Maybe the only note on the program I want to make is about the open space we have in the afternoon. So who does know what it's an open space? Oh, Esko, you will need some explanation, I think. Right. Maybe Esko will explain it a bit better than me later, but if the general idea is that if you get an idea yourself of what you would want to talk about in this context, then that's the time to do that. We'll get back to that later, but start to think about it. So in this morning plenary, we're going to give you some inputs from the cyanotype project. You have heard a lot about that yesterday, and we have invited some of our core partners from the project to give you the main inputs from the project, because that, of course, is, as you've heard yesterday, a bit what we want to set as grounds, as the seeds we talk about, so that then later you can give us feedback back to us, to the project. And then we make you work, you do the work. Isn't that fun? Fun work. We have lots of Post-its, lots of interactive things. We have our walls. We will show you again later. So it's not going to be boring work. It's going to be fun work. So we have a few speakers for you today. And I think I'm just going to let it go. Or do you want to remind us of the rules maybe first? Esko. Let's have the speakers first, and then we'll remind you of the rules. All right, so we're just moving on. So this is the title of our plenary. We have heard a lot yesterday about learning, learning, unlearning, relearning, micro-learning, micro-credentials, lots of words. We also have a wall for that. So that's important that you think of the words that maybe you understand or you don't understand. That's also interesting to know. We also talked a lot about that, right? And you will hear a bit more about that, about creating a common language. And of course, because we are aiming to bring different communities together, we have different terminologies, right? But so again, as I said, I'm just gonna straight go on to our speakers, because then you can get a bit more of an idea of what we're talking about. So you see the names on the screens. We also have, for you guys, you have a screen on the other side. So I'm just going to invite on stage Garen and Becky. Please take it over. And I'll just pass on the mic.
And the clicker.
And the clicker. And the clicker. Do you want to stand?
Oh, it's okay. Well, thank you.
You can go first, Garen.
I believe. Or?
Yes.
At least at the rehearsal, I was the first. Okay, so good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you had a lovely evening and night yesterday, like I did. So basically, this is the one milestone of our project of CYANOTYPES, and I think David already explained yesterday the background a little bit, and we are today sharing some of the results we collected. Yeah, sorry. This is what I have to say. So basically our first year. First, we were asked to identify skills gaps. So what are the urgent skills gaps we face today? I mean, we have multiple crises. We have to look, you know, how our workforce is trained, how our creative talents are coping with this. We looked what are the opportunities of upskilling and reskilling, and we identified, and that's also part of our application, we identified transversal skills needs. Then, of course, then the second stage is we looked what are the occupational profiles connecting to the skills needs. Then we were asked to prepare sectorial skill strategy for the CCI. So this is one of the main objectives we have, to look, you know, what are not only for design, only for fashion. So what are our common dominators in the sectors? And of course, then this was also asked by the Commission, that we look what are the urgent skills needs, post-COVID, digital and green transitions. And but we don't want to stop today. We also, that's our intention, to look in 10 years' time. So what does it mean? Our daily, you know, changes where we're confronted with. I mean, when we started, nobody thought about prompt engineering. So it rolled over us, and of course we had to deal with that. And we believe that it will not stop like this. You know, it will not be fixed today. So there will be another thing coming, like prompt engineering, in the coming years of our project. Yeah, and we organized a series of workshops across Europe where we try to connect with the ecosystems, where we try to connect as much people as possible. And so these are the first outcomes, so to say. We have a massive literature review. I mean, there are so many. I think we have over 4,000 data points. In that sense, it was overwhelming, you know, what is written, how it's written. But as we saw, there is not a consistent terminology. There is not a consistent methodology. There is no consistency at all. So, I mean, thank you to Lucifono, because they really, you know, suffered in that sense. To boil it down to 250, we believe to 250 main literature for our what do we need for our sector, for our work. We had interviews and focus groups with industry agents in these workshops online. We made a massive survey also, and of course these workshops, as I explained before. So you see, this is only one outcome. We got a long list of different skills people, you know, think they are important for their sector, for their branch. I don't know how many, but it's list, and we have to figure out how we can bring a logic into that. And that's also the reason why we're here today. So basically, we had questions like thinking about the sector, with which you are most familiar with. which of the following types of skills you would consider important. So these were some of these questions where we then ended up with such lists. Yeah, and then we had the ranking, of course. Other question was, which of the following skills areas are already being provided in your sector? So this is also, it was important to us to see what is already happening in the sector. You know, I mean, how our sector already react on the problems, on the changes. Yeah, so more provision currently provided and not provided. So this is also what does, you know, people see what should be done in that sense. Yeah. Then we also taking from our application, we matched it, and I think David yesterday explained it a little bit. We tried to cluster the competencies, so we are not on the level of defining every skills, like Photoshop is important, or I don't know, using ChatGPT is important, of course, but before that we have to look what are the common dominators, what are the competencies we really, really believe are important for our sector. And basically we have found 7 different competences, and basically it's derived from oh, I can't read it now. But basically OECD, World Economic Forum, from the lifelong learning policy paper from the Commission, from the UN, and also from the EIT. We tried to bring all this information together, and we came up with 7. Collaboration, yes, it's important, of course. Lifelong learning, creativity and innovation, decision-making, entrepreneurship, citizenship, and critical thinking. So these are somehow the big fields we will work on. We will try to go to the next level, so we're looking for the skills, upskilling and reskilling possibilities, and then based on that we will provide training courses, or at least pilots, like in a sandbed, and make a provision to others to use this knowledge. So as Esko yesterday beautifully explained, this is not a wellness retreat. You're here to work with us, and we believe, you know, in this room are brilliant minds, and we want to extract your brilliant thoughts. So we ask you to help us now. You saw this long list. We kept it at 40 and 60%, most noted skills. And we will vote on that now, or make a rank, or you help us to make a better ranking, to weight the results. And there will be 3 fields: participatory competences, emancipatory competences, and anticipatory competences. So please take your phone. It's a Mentimeter session. I don't find my phone now. Here. You can make a photo here or there. So we do have a problem with live feeds. So the results, I mean, this is now a cliffhanger. You have to come to my desk, and we will reveal the results afterwards. So do we have the first question online? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, please, the most important 3 you think, the 3 most important skills for your sector. Please vote for that. Yeah, that was also tricky for me. Yeah. DJ people are basically people who are connecting, you know, like this. They connect with more.
That was the one.
But you're right, it was also my question. Matchmakers, yeah.
Matchmakers, it's a better word.
Relevant.
Most relevant, relevant, or not relevant?
But is it like
Important.
that they're really important to develop, or that is important if
For your sector to have.
for me personally?
No, for your sector.
To have or to develop more?
To have.
To have. If I'm done, I don't.
So we make a countdown. 10, 9, 8. You need more time. You need more time. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, we have more time. Neria.
Are
Are
we
you
good
still
with the time? 102
102
votes.
votes.
That's not
Do we
bad.
still have people who are having questions or want to, or can we go to the next? Let's move on. We are under time pressure. So Neria is putting up the next question. Sorry, the next questions are, I should have this too. So artistic entrepreneurship, resilience and tolerance, knowing your strength, interpersonal perspective taking, art of conversation, coping with uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk, not certainty, okay? Scaling abstraction, self-awareness and self-efficacy. Efficacy. So I'm here to learn new words.
Yes, and efficacy meaning in Swedish, in English.
Effective. Effective.
Effective.
Not even for you.
Definitely using blank one. This is the things we haven't discovered yet. Next layer.
We need more votes.
What is interpersonal perspective taking?
So reflexivity, reflexivity.
Exactly. This is a great introduction to our Tower of Babel. You do not understand the words, you can later take a post-it and stick it onto the Tower of Babel. What the hell does that mean? You can do that.
We didn't come up with that word.
We did it.
Expert came up with that word.
Exactly.
Okay, so we can move to the third question, anticipatory competences. Understanding different points of view, creativity, problem framing, future literacy, vision, understanding, co-agency, system thinking, valuing sustainability.
There is a wrong title in the, but the questions are right. So look, yeah. Now it's good. All good.
Okay, how are you doing? A lot of people staring at the phone still, so either you are so fascinated by the question or there's a news coming up. Yeah, so thank you very much. So this helps us a lot, you know, to navigate through this vast of information we found. We have now with your input, a clearer hierarchy of the terminologies of the skills which are needed, and of course this will be reflected in all our programs we will develop from now on. And basically, I can hand over to Becky.
Thank you, Gerin. I'm going to move. You see, I listen. Okay, so we're going to spend a few moments just sharing some of the results that we got in terms of what's out there. So in order for us to understand gaps, we need to understand people's opinion about what they think they need, but we also need to understand what's currently available, what the skills or learning provisions are out there. And we did that through the survey. So if there are people here that answered that section of the survey, thank you very much. I know it took a long time. And we called in personal favors for people to do it because, you know, it's a big topic. And to get some concrete and scientific data, we had to ask a lot of questions. And we will continue doing that, by the way, because we are CYANOTYPES, and so we will have surveys for the entire project. Okay, so what we did was we reached out to educators. We had two sections of the survey. The first one was sort of a general, what's your gut feeling? What do you think we need? What's your perspective? And we kept it as an open question because we wanted to just see what came back from the educators. And we've been able to cluster them into some macro groups. The questions asked were, where do you feel the gaps are in the current learning provision that you provide, and what do you think the important changes are? And there were lots of commonalities in the responses that we received. So what we can see here, for example, is the importance of being relevant and keeping up, the importance of being able to adapt quickly to innovation, to technology, connections, the importance of having collaborations and partnerships, and the emphasis there wasn't just on bringing the content in from industry needs so that your training is relevant, but also creating concrete opportunities to transform learning experience into job opportunities afterwards. And then there was also focus on formats, and specifically online and accessible formats, and we'll go into that in a bit. The last two clusters are transversal, transformative, what do we want to call them? Participatory, anticipatory, emancipatory, I don't know. It's all about language. We'll get there. That's one of the topics with CYANOTYPES. But what was clear was that there's a demand out there from the educators to really focus on ethics, responsible AI, sustainability, green, growth mindset, the ability to learn, learning to learn, being open to the idea of unlearning and relearning. Soft skills, again, what are soft skills? Are they transversal? Are they transformative? It's all about language. And then diversity and inclusion. So that's an interesting one because there was a clear thread coming through that we needed to be more open to creating processes that make the sector and the training more inclusive, not only to expand the audiences, but also to enrich the products that come out as a consequence. The other answers that you can see here were specific to the questions that we asked. We just wanted to highlight the difference, but obviously there's huge commonalities between perceived gaps and perceived important changes. And it's really just backing up what's already been said. So something that was interesting in the feedback received was the awareness or recognition of the value of skills. And that was with specific reference to the soft skills, such as growth mindset and critical thinking, and understanding their importance so they can be inserted into the curriculum. There was also focus on cross-sector and impact, and the reference to that was very much to basically creating new opportunities for the creative and cultural sector and being able to communicate effectively the value of what we can bring to other sectors. Financial support was something which came up often. Transferability, now what's interesting there, the transferability was with reference to transferring learning provision from higher education into vocational educational training. Formats, again, focus on individualized learning, which is compatible with online learning potentially, but revising the formats generally. And then regarding the skills, there was also focus. I mean, all of these clusters, also we've analyzed the data and we've got sort of scientific volume behind these clusters. Career self-management. And I know it was mentioned yesterday by David, the fluidity of the creative and cultural sector, we all know that, and the ability the need to be able to reinvent yourself and transform and move into new roles. And it was identified that there was more development needed there. So, next section of the survey was to map what's out there. And to do that, we decided right from the beginning, collectively, to pool the work effort that's out there right now, because the knowledge and innovation community for the creative and cultural sector that were here yesterday, they're also doing a mapping exercise. They've been doing it all year. And so we decided to create synergies and to make the most of the extended network so that we can actually create representative data. So what we'll be sharing with you now is an amalgamation of the data that's been collected by both initiatives. One thing I'd like to highlight is that this is work in progress. It's CYANOTYPES. We will continue. The data that we currently have is more focused on vocational educational training and informal training, less focused on higher educational training. So I have a question now in the audience. Who here represents a vocational educational training organization? One. Okay. And who here represents a higher education institution? Okay, so it's actually even Stevens. Okay, it's not that. All right, stand up, everyone. The guys up, vets, HEI, stand up. Just stand up. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Okay, so look at each other, clock each other, because one of the things that came up in the survey was that there's still a silence between higher education and vets. So when we do our activities...
I'm confused now. I see higher education people standing up. So
no, I want everyone to stand up. I want them to get to know each other. Oh, okay, sorry. No, that was just one. That was some of the feedback that came loud and clear from the survey responses. So what are we talking about? We've been through this already. I think we all know what we're talking about. We're talking about reskilling and upskilling, learning new skills and evolving with your job and staying competitive, formal or informal. The way we categorized the survey was between area of study program, so this is the curriculum, and through the course titles, clustering them. And then, sorry, let me go back again, and then the category. So this would be the research perspective that was applied to those courses, okay? What we'd like to share with you, this is probably a tricky graph. It's tricky data to share, but let me explain the concept, because this is interesting for us. And again, work in progress, because once we get the results from the literature research, for example, we'll be able to understand this data better. But what this is telling us, the correlation between the category and the study area of learning programs, is that there's a lot of focus on business skills and imprendatorial skills. That's great. There's far, far less focus on humanities, design, sociology, cultural studies. And the question that we're asking ourselves as a project right now is that okay? Is that all right? Does that work? Or do we need to do something different? In terms of educational approach, not surprising here that we have a lot of no formal and informal because of the responses that we have currently from the survey. We'd like to see the formal developing more. But this is also telling us that non-formal and informal is a really important part of the learning pathway for our sector. Regarding participation, we can see here that there's a lot of hybrid and remote. There's a lot of physical, as we would expect. But interestingly, the feedback the educators give us is that we need more hybrid. We need more online. So what's going on here? Do we have like make-do formats that have come from COVID that haven't been renewed? Do we need to change the way we're doing a hybrid? Change the way we're doing online? And here we have just a focus on what the courses are actually delving into. And I apologize, it's hard to see, you can't see, but I'll talk through it. What this is telling us is that there is a lot of focus right now on business skills, on things like creative thinking, so participatory skills. There's far, far less focus on, for example, developing sustainable business solutions, so that's a common thread. We know we have to think about green with our training content and our training framework. What's interesting here as well is that there's very little focus on the evaluation of data, the evaluation, for example, of the unintended consequences of technology and innovation. And yet, the ability to manage data gives us the ability to see in the future and to anticipate. And so that's a topic. Data literacy in general is a topic which was mentioned by David as well. So we've only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to end with this. It's been said before, but this came up too in the survey. So, you know, the instinct is right. It's all about learning to unlearn, and that's what we need to focus with our framework that we're developing sort of as of tomorrow, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Baking Gary. Yeah. So now we are moving from the gaps to the urgencies. And Florence Schneider from NTNU is going to guide us through that. There you go.
Let's see whether.
We need the mic because
Need
we
a
have audience
where's
online.
Stella? I need a third hand.
Or I can put it there for you.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe we try this. Yeah.
Clearly, I have to improve my technical skills.
No, super, perfect. Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. I mean, it's not a report about the 3 workshops we have been conducting in the last month on addressing the most urgent skills needs. It's more like I was asked to make a provocation. So don't worry, it will be a very, very soft and mild provocation. It's, you know. So the question I want to talk, yeah, even better, fantastic. Thank you so much. The question I want to talk about now briefly in 10 minutes is how to address the most urgent skills needs. And of course, again, like many of the speakers yesterday evening or already today, we start with the so-called multiple crisis situation. I like the term polycrisis situation a little bit more. So the question is, what makes it so difficult to prioritize in this context one skill set over the other? Yeah. We are confronted with a multiplicity of challenges ranging from isolating windows in a city theater to exposing the biases of algorithmic control. Is it really true that prompt engineering is so much more urgent than sound engineering? Yeah? And when we look at the classical education, for example, in painting or drawing, unseeing things, how does it relate to the skills needed in order to learn how to think critically and conceptually? So it's literally impossible to introduce a hierarchy or a priority list of the skills needs that are more urgent compared to those who are less urgent. And this problem is further complicated by what we all know and what was also mentioned yesterday many, many times, yeah, the fragmentation of the sector, the fragmentation of the different cultural and creative sectors and industries. So full disclosure, I want to be really honest with you. I'm speaking here, or I have the opportunity or the honor to speak to you here today, not because I'm professor for art theory and documentary practices in a University of Science and Technology, as impressive as this sounds. No, I talk to you today and I gained the competences and the skills and the qualification and the creative confidence because I counted last week, I was working in my life for more than 25 years as a solo, micro, mini entrepreneur, freelancer, whatever, in 8 of the 13 creative sectors. Therefore, my main concern is how can we turn the fragmentation of the sector from a weakness into a strength? Because I experienced this personally as an incredibly enriching experience to having had the privilege to work in so many different sectors. So let's start with a very simple question. After the pandemic, amidst the digital shift, the green transitions, and a war in Europe, how do we respond to the complexity of the multiple crisis situations? I think we need an advanced understanding of what makes a skills need urgent. So urgencies are regimes of truth. They regulate our capacities to impel and propel action. So urgencies, we need to understand urgencies as the processes through which reality comes into being. And at the same time, they constitute, the urgencies, they constitute regimes of stimulating both. I think it's very, very important that it's a double bind. Yeah? They stimulate both risk-taking, but also risk avoidance. So the key learning outcome of the first workshop, which we dedicated to the question of urgencies. Rethinking and reframing urgencies requires fundamentally a recontextualization of the core concepts of creativity, entrepreneurship, and innovation, or to put it more simple, into more simple word, what does it actually mean today to make something new? So do we really need ever more new stuff? Yeah, what about the degrowth scenarios, the disinvestment, or as Jakob Billabel called it at our last workshop, exnovation as opposed to innovation? Yeah? So what does this mean in terms of circular aesthetics or sustainable aesthetics in our sector? And the other question, equally important, how is generative AI fundamentally reshaping our understanding, and this happens as we speak, of what is new, what is considered to be new, and in doing so, really questioning our conventional, traditional understanding of creativity as such. So what are the skills that are needed to adapt and to contribute to the digital shift and to the climate transition, or the climate crisis? So here we encountered a surprise. We are confronted with one main challenge in both contexts. And this we describe as reclaiming the power to be affected in order to increase our ability to act. We all know about the power to create affect. And I think yesterday we learned a great deal about creating affects and why this is so important in the current situation and what the cultural and creative sectors and industries can contribute. So it means to create emotions. It means to make people feel moved and touched, for example, by a work of art, by also any other creative product or video game. It means to make people feel moved and touched. For instance, by a work of art, creating affects feeds certain stereotypes, how art, culture, and creativity are supposed to contribute to these transitions. It's a lot, let's be honest, about providing beautiful illustrations of sad scientific facts. It's about activating a passive audience through entertainment. It's about decorating otherwise ugly or boring spaces. So this is the power to create affect. We are very familiar with this, and we are bragging about it to the max. But what about the complementary concept, the power to be affected? So if there's one thing we can learn from this polycrisis or multiple crisis situations, then it's this. They teach us that we are all subjected to forces that are much bigger and much, much more powerful than us. And to experience this power to be affected, for example, by the climate crisis, means that we have to learn, first of all, how to surrender to external forces. And in doing so, we reject the concepts of a sovereign individual, the idea of a master, the idea of an entrepreneur who pretends to manage to gain control over all these external forces and put them into use for the purpose of a certain ideological identity of myself and my own. So in today's attention economy, the power to be affected is, we all do this. I mean, it's a kind of, it might sound like a complex concept from philosophy, from Spinoza, but we are all dealing with this in our everyday life, online life. It's reduced to likes, to hearts, and to thumbs up. And in fact, counting affection, analyzing the patterns of how people are affected, large scale and big data, this has become the business model of these so-called platform economies. And by interpreting and anticipating user behavior, by training algorithms with the cultural heritage and the products of past creativity, these economic models extract value from our sector in the widest sense. But in a much, much closer view, the meaning of statistics shifts here. And this, I think, is really interesting because it's a dramatic shift. So statistics is no longer about making statements about what is true, statistics are shifting to manipulations of what one should do. This is dramatic because it's kind of creative as well. So equally, the power to be affected seems to have become, this is also something that we experience more or less permanently. Yeah? The power to be affected also, in parallel, has become an more or less exclusive privilege that is reserved to victim identities. Yeah? So only if you can claim that you are a victim of a certain process, you can claim the right to speak, or you can claim the right to resist or to be creative. So how can we learn and teach, or how can we learn how to teach, or teach how to learn, to regain and reappropriate our very, very specific powers to be affected? So ironically, the traditional way to learn about the power to be affected has been, we know this very well from the art academies, yeah, it has been the method of replication. Just do it as your professor has been doing it, copying the masters. This is, I mean, very uninteresting in terms of creating affect. It's very, very interesting and very insightful when you think about it as learning the power to be affected. So, but there are many, many more examples historically of these kind of learning environments, and they are expanding drastically. They range from the white cube, yeah, which I also see as a space of experimentation in terms of the power to be affected, to the dance floor. From the secession in Vienna, no? To the off theater, the cinema of the cinephiles, yeah, but also the early internet. So it's a specific understanding, and it's a very tacit knowledge of the power to be affected that always has been the business secret of subcultures, artistic avant-garde movements, but most likely, I would argue, any kind of successful entrepreneurship model in culture and creativity. It's based on the power to be affected, not on the power to create affect. So on both individual and collective level, this encourages us to revisit and reintroduce the concepts of alienation, degentrification, decentering, and revisit concepts like exodus, ecstasis or ecstasy, or making the familiar unfamiliar, making it strange, or if you want, queer. So the capacity to create safe spaces for radical experimentation, this is what is genuine for art, culture, and creativity, and it really sets our sectors and industries apart, at least when it comes to skills and learning opportunities, since we learn about the power to be affected in these spaces. So how can these capabilities help us now today to tackle with the challenges of the climate crisis in the next wave of digitization and automatization? I think on one hand, it's really about demystifying the impact of generative AI and learning how to reuse it as an instrument to create affect and be affected. And this really requires a revaluation of creative value or the value of creativity as such. On the other hand, it also means that we have to realize the power that results from being affected, for example, by the climate crisis or by the digital shift. This corresponds to our capacity in art, culture, and creativity to call into question all that exists. It can teach us that everything that is human-made can still be changed by humans, and I think this is a very, very important message. Another surprise, I mean, it just happened, I think, day before yesterday in a conversation with Becky. I think, and I would like to further elaborate on this at another occasion, the power to create affect and the power to be affected could be nicely translated, or in a very interesting way translated, to transitive and intransitive skills. And this, for me, would be a counter concept to this kind of binary division between soft skills and hard skills. Yeah? I mean, it comes from grammar or linguistics. No? A transitive verb is a verb that needs an adjective or an object. An intransitive verb is something that happens with you. Yeah? where you cannot connect an object directly. So it's probably safe to conclude, due to our capacities to create affect and be affected, the CCIs have manifold and highly valuable and largely untapped potentials to adapt and to contribute to the triple transition. But driving the triple transition requires capacities of a different kind. Yeah, this is much more than just adapting to it and contributing a little bit to it. Yeah. It means to learn how to raise the question of justice in this context. And this is the key question of the current transformation processes. Because with Walter Benjamin, it introduces the question, who benefits? Yeah. I think we are faced with a tremendous challenge. We will follow up on this in Bilbao in the end of this month with decolonizing innovation, deconstructing these colonial concepts of entrepreneurship and innovation as if this all is about conquering new territories, as if they were blank and have not existed before. It's about dominating knowledge and mastering the space of the unknown through technology. And these colonial concepts we have to radically decolonize, and it leads to a different concept of justice. Because it means rather than balancing out the different particular interests on an ad hoc basis, we are confronted with an increasingly complex issues of spatial justice, data justice, generational justice, you name it. And these issues can only be addressed by skills that promote an equally complex understanding of sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, but maybe even most importantly, aesthetic sustainability. So finally, the ultimate question, how do we start? I think, and I was very, very grateful for Charlotte's presentation yesterday, the greatest and most urgent need is documentation. And we have very, very concrete plans for this that came directly out of our workshops. We desperately need adequate tools to demonstrate and verify the skills and competences that are characterizing the material basis for the creativity in our sector. The problem is it's informal, it's hardly documented, it exists on an ad hoc, it's exchanged on an ad hoc basis, yeah? And we need to learn how to identify, develop and document the multiplicity of formal and informal, transitive and intransitive skills to explore the hidden and most obvious capacities of the CCIs to respond to the polycrisis and to drive the triple transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Florian. So now we are moving to the future. And I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. You will have even more after Sonia's presentation. And that's great, because we will have time for you to discuss the questions, and we will use the walls. Just maybe a little reminder, I saw lots of people taking pictures, and I just want to remind you that everything is recorded and that you will get the slides. So don't worry about that. But now, indeed, as I said, we are moving from gaps to urgencies and to the future skills. So Sonia Alves is going to introduce us to the work done there. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, and I really think that I'm coming to make you more confused with everything. So our creative nature relates to and is connected to the way we act and prepare for action in our context, the cultural and creative industries. We use it as a framework in the process of identifying future skills needs in times of transition and transformation, when we need to rethink our choices, envision consequences, and choose alternatives. For that, we need to act with responsibility and courage. We need to enable imagination and creativity, new ways of thinking and relating. Therefore, we built a toolkit focused on 4 essential aspects that help us identifying future skill sets and focus on agency, covering the complexities that we find across the ecosystem and that lead us to the creation of a new mindset. And sometimes also helping us leaving things behind, because we need to let loose too. The focus of our framework is transversal and cross-sectorial and covers all aspects of interaction. And as we can see with the use of the EU competencies frameworks, for example, we don't always need to look at the future in the future. We can already start looking at the future from the present, because that's how we build it. And the framework of the EU competences, it was very important for us to develop this work. Sorry. Of course, we also need to consider capabilities focused on our ability to do something, and we complement it with some competencies and skills. The list is long, and I don't think it makes sense to just go through it right now. We will go through it maybe later. For us, future skills are created in ecosystems. And to help design future competencies for the ecosystem, we developed the Creative Agency Circle, through which we can engage, activate, mobilize, and change. And as we can see, this toolkit can help us identify, but also imagine, to develop our level of future skills readiness, not only as an individual, as an institution, but also as someone active in a competent ecosystem. So the focus on collective agency is necessary to expand the horizon of our collective agency, to find new forms of cooperation, act in new roles, assume new responsibilities, shape decision-making and participation processes, explore new relations between human and non-human agents, learn from other species, have a collective agency with a powerful insight into technology. We also need to have conversations about reimagining and making the future. We need to focus on public agency. We need to consider the importance of public actors for policy, for education, especially in our European institutional framework, and the key role play in the implementation of transformation processes, especially in regional context, regional and local, while reorganizing creativity, artistic, interactive, and immersive processes. Public space results from co-creation. Also, the importance of policies in the public sphere in order to reach every actor. We need to focus on data-driven. We need to intervene in the processes of collection of data. We need to consider how we collect and analyze data and organize and acquire knowledge from it. We need to consider the opportunities for intelligent processes and systems, the development of data competencies. We need to design spaces as context for new forms of communication and value creation, while at the same time, we need to make models envisioning new realities outside of data in order to generate better alternatives. We need to focus on value creating, view beyond entrepreneurial action, and the dynamics of value creation, and focus on the interplay of different actors and innovation dynamics, cultural, social, technological. And finally, we need to think regenerative, as sustainable is not enough. We have destroyed too much. We need to do more than repair at this point. And at the same time, we need to consider resilience. And so we would like to invite you, sorry, I missed the region. We'd like to invite you to join us later on the open space. Here you can see our Creative Agency Circle completed with the information that I was providing in part. And right now, And this is the Creative Agency Circle that I invite you to work with today in the open spaces and start acting on the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thanks a lot. So again, remember, you don't see the small letters, you will get the slides, so don't worry about that. I'm also going to say goodbye to our online audience because they have their own program. And we're just slightly late on the coffee break, but we will catch it up, so no worries about that. Esco, hi. We're back into our duo act.
Since the online audience...
You need to talk in the mic.
Well, no, actually...
Talk in the mic.
Can you hear me if I don't use a microphone? Okay, because yesterday I discovered I'm allergic to these things.
Ah.
And I just confirmed the online audience is going to their
Bye.
specific program, so I'm going to continue like this. We were supposed to have a second bit in the Kassenhalle yesterday to introduce like the principles, but reading the room we figured out that there's no more information going into your head. So we're going to do that now. But I just want to do a quick recap. Do we remember that if a question is asked and we want to assent positivity, we do this? And if we disagree or negative, it's like that. And if we're unsure, neutral, it's like this. Okay, great. And we learned another tool, which is that it was called silent llama. We're changing it a little bit. Somebody does this, what do you do? First thing is you also do this, and the second thing is you stop talking, and the third thing is if somebody's still talking, you look at them and you go like that. Yeah. We will need this because we're going to be moving in and out of here, and we need to be very efficient at kind of like affecting the transition, and this is our mechanism to do it. The reason we've changed from this to this is that we learned yesterday, feedback mechanism, that in some cultures, this one is a bit problematic. So, this is I love you. Okay, so hey, are we okay with that? I love you because you're being quiet now. Okay. I love when you're quiet. Recap done. So, the additional principles we need to kind of get into ourselves today. When this all works